So let's bring in retired Colonel IDF intelligence officer and Reichman University International Institute for Counterterrorism Director Miri Eisen. Thank you for joining us this morning. You know, one of the things that Australian officials talked about is that the current threat level, they call it probable, which they define as meaning 50% possibility that there could be another attack or an ongoing attack there in Australia. What does that tell you?
We're looking at an attack that was done by two men. That we already saw. There's a probability that there were additional ones, meaning, first off, it's not a lone wolf attack. This is something where they came together. They came with weapons. They probably came in a car. With the possibility of a car, you could have additional weaponry out there. You could have explosives. This could have been, let's first attack the Festival of Light, the Hanukkah festival, the Jews on the beach, and then, in addition, add in additional types of weaponry, as I say, explosives of different type. So when we're talking about a heightened level, I'm assuming that right now the New South Wales police that the Australian Prime Minister just mentioned are looking at these different men, who they were connected to, where they were, are there additional explosives, and even more than that, Hanukkah is 8 nights. This is the first night. Are there additional targets? Synagogues, different Jewish places. And if I'm allowed one more point, which really disturbed me when I was listening to the Prime Minister of Australia, is he did not say the word Jewish. He did not say the word terrorist. It was all about equality. This was attack against Jews on the first night of Hanukkah, and it needs to be said.
Yeah, Miri, it's a great point. We flagged that earlier in the initial statement. Of course, during the press conference, Albanese went on to speak about the rise of anti-Semitism and calling it an act of terror. What's interesting to me, though, is you did hear from the press in Australia. They were really pressing Prime Minister Albanese about whether or not his government has done enough to heed warnings of attacks such as this. And if you were listening to our chief foreign correspondent, Trey Eames, just a moment ago, the live shot he has the Kyria behind him. That's, of course, Israel's equivalent of the Pentagon, and he's saying they're meeting there now. So what can you take us inside with, obviously, your experience? What might officials in Israel be looking at dealing with potential future attacks in places like Australia, where there is fair criticism that warnings may not have been taken seriously enough?
I'm going to split that into two different parts. One is the immediate threat. Israel has already in the past, and Australia has acknowledged it, that the Islamic regime of Iran, has already been involved in trying to recruit and arm in Australia using targets against Israel. So that we already have that out there, and this needs to be acted on more. This type of attack, where you have individuals who, at least on the one, they've said he is Australian. That means that he was either recruited, somebody probably paid him. How did they get the weapons, especially if they have additional explosives? I expect Israel in that sense to be looking at what we're very good at, if I can say that, looking at the Islamic regime, looking at the different ways that they recruit. And I say to myself also, the Islamic regime of Iran even managed to recruit Israelis in Israel during this war, meaning it isn't something that happens just in Australia, and they were rooted out by Israel's domestic comparative to the FBI. I expect Australia to do the same, to look for the recruitment, to be able to see it online. These are things that Israel has more knowledge and capability with. I want to add in an additional point that has to do with giving a long-term warning. The last 2 years and 3 months, I've watched the horrific change of rhetoric, of words, that has happened specifically in Australia. Trey before mentioned Arsen Ostrovsky, a wonderful man who immigrated to Israel from Australia and just moved back to Australia like a month or two ago to head there an Australian Israel Jewish organization. And he was wounded today on Bondi Beach, and they've showed him in the news. And I say that because when we talk about what's been happening in Australia, That horrific words bring about extremism. When people see how extreme things are, they think that the words are okay. And if somebody does not stand up and talk against the extreme words, you recruit on board extreme people. And I'm waiting to see who were the terrorists, how they were recruited. And to me, the most important now is preventing the next attack, making sure that right now, immediately, they've uncovered all of the capabilities, but in long term, those who recruited these men to go do it, they didn't wake up in the morning and decide to attack on Bondi Beach. They went to a Jewish event that was published that it was going to be there, and we need to be able to prevent that. And last but not least is really in that sense to up the security around Jewish sites, which I say as both a Jew and Israeli is horrible, but you need to do so. It's something that's happened in the United States. I just got back from the States. Every single synagogue I went to now has, police outside. That's a horrible thing on the one hand, but on the other hand, it means that they are protected. I wish we didn't need that, but we do need that.
Miri, I want to read you what Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to say, his statement. But before I do, why do you think anti-Semitism is on the rise, specifically in Australia?
I'm going to give the sad, full answer, because for the last 2 years and 3 months, and it had to be latent before for it to come out in this way, Israel has been posed as the worst country on earth, and anything associated with Israel is the worst thing on earth. That means that me, Miri, sitting right now in Tel Aviv, Trey that we saw before, we're the worst people on earth. We're so horrible that we are dehumanized. My heart can go out to the horrible war that we've been fighting for the last 2 years and 3 months. For a moment, I don't think that it's not easy in Gaza, and I absolutely acknowledge the horrific war that's gone in Gaza. Hamas started that war on October 7th. There is no pretty war. I don't think that this is a pretty war, but that is in the background of using that backdrop of that Hamas attack, of Hamas using its own population as its own human shield inside the Gaza Strip, and then blaming Israel for everything in the world and using that as a premise to attack Jews worldwide. And I say it very sadly. I always wanted to be able to separate, people who can say that Jews don't have a right to a nation homeland like everybody else. I can argue with that one. But right now, it has been dehumanized to a stage where Jews are attacked worldwide. Anybody who supports Israel is attacked worldwide, where I can't stand up and talk as a Jew, as a woman, as an Israeli, because I have no right to be able to say anything. And it's not just in Australia, it's also sadly in the United States. Don't ignore it. It's not just from the left, it's from the right. It's everywhere right now.
I don't have time to read the statement now, but I just let you know that Marco Rubio put out a statement, our Secretary of State, condemning what happened in Australia. Miri Eisen, thank you so much for joining us.